Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Middle Class Rockstar. I'm filming today, the future of podcasts. Zooming. I'm zooming this interview and there's audio and video. So for the first time, if I get it all edited correctly, you'll be able to watch the entirety of this podcast on YouTube, as well as listening on Apple Music or wherever you might listen to your podcast. Anyway, I want to start off by saying thanks to our sponsors, Narrator RF. They offer simple and affordable licensing on exceptional music for sync. For more information, go to narratorrf.com. And of course, PQ Mastering. Patrick at PQ Mastering puts the finishing touches on this podcast. And for any of your audio or restoration needs, go to pqmastering.com for more information. And Patrick is a lifesaver. He's helped me get this podcast recording thing going and set up. I couldn't have done it on my own to be able to do it, to do these phone interviews over the computer with decent quality audio. So, Patrick, thank you. I sure appreciate it. Well, things are kind of fucked up out there right now, obviously, for everybody. And I don't know what else to say about it. I hope, obviously, this is not a good thing. People are dying, and safety is the most important thing. And it seems to be getting uglier by the day. But I'm trying to focus on the positives myself of quarantine. We're 4.5 weeks in. Allie and I moved into our new place here. You can see my studio if you're watching on YouTube. 4 weeks ago, and right as the quarantine and the shut-in was starting. So it was a weird time to move, but we've been able to get all moved in, get all the boxes unpacked, which is great. We've spent a lot of quality time together. We watch a TV show at night. We've been cooking. I feel like we've both become much better cooks than we were. I'm usually teaching till 8:30 or 9 on the weekdays, and she's up at 6 a.m. to go teach or work at Starbucks. So our schedules don't align this much usually. So that's one positive thing, is the quality time I'm getting to spend. Also, I'm spending a lot of time in the studio. I'm doing a lot of recording. Just finished up a Graceland cover that I'm excited about with a percussionist in town, Eric Lowe. And I've been checking out people's live streams. I've been doing live streams. It's been kind of fun to see the community come together in the way that it has. But that's maybe a short-term fleeting excitement. I know it's scary if you're a musician to think about where's your income going to come from for the near future, or even further out than that. My band would be in Canada right now. We'd have played in Saskatoon tonight. I had the tour gone as planned, and I was really looking forward to going up and hanging out with our Canada family, and we're not doing that. And now I'm sitting here at our dates that we booked in October, our makeup dates, wondering, well, hell, are we going to be able to do those now? And I feel for big tours that aren't able to go out, and all the people who would be going to Red Rocks concerts or sporting events. It's just sort of a weird thing, but I hope you all are making the best of it with what you can. I hope you haven't lost any loved ones. I hope you haven't gotten sick. And I hope you continue to stay safe. Anyway, enough of all that. What else? I'll quickly mention I'm releasing an EP on May 16th. Ellie and I decided to go as planned and not wait for the quarantine to be over and just go for it, or the shelter in place, and just go for it. We're going to keep business as usual. So I've got an EP out on all streaming platforms on May 16th. My guest today is Dan Cable. I've been a guest on his podcast 2 times in the past, and he called me and asked if I wanted to go on it again, and I said, well, I've been trying to interview you as well. So this is a collaborative podcast. It's sort of, we're using the interview. It's more of a conversation. He's asking me questions. I'm asking him questions. And he's going to air it on his podcast, Dan Cable Presents, and I'm going to air it on my podcast. You're listening to it, Middle Class Rockstar. Dan is a major influencer in the Portland, Oregon music scene. He's had Dan Cable Presents forever. He has 1 million episodes. He's had artists of all genres and shapes and sizes and levels on. and he does it all the time. He keeps it going every single week. He's also involved in several other podcasts, or a couple other podcasts, including Bible Buds with Andrew Harrison, who was on a recent episode of this podcast, also out of Portland. The two of them, Dan and Andrew, get together and they get high and talk about the Bible every week, and it's quite hilarious, I will say. You can't tell if they're poking fun at the stories or are deeply religious about the stories. It's just sort of getting high and talking about it. So go check out Bible Buds if you're interested in that. But I've been friends with Dan for a long time. He set me up with a 7-night residency in Portland last February at Owl's Den, and it's been great following his career and seeing what he's been doing. Like I said, he's a big influencer in the Portland scene. He does kind of a lot of different things. He's just a huge music enthusiast, and between his podcast and he was booking a lot of events for a while and helping people with their plan and their structure when they're getting ready to release something, going out to live shows and just being the guy with the big red beard that everybody likes. He does it all. So I'm really excited to get him on the podcast. And like I said today, it's not really an interview. It's a conversation because we're both airing this on our respective platforms. So he's asking me questions. I'm asking him questions. We're shooting the shit. And it was a lot of fun. My first cyber middle-class rock star podcast, and there will be a lot more coming up in the near future, or even more distant future, depending on how things go. But anyway, without further ado, let's jump in to my conversation with Dan Capel. I have Logic going right now. Alls I need to do.
This guy has Logic.
He's got Logic.
Logic.
I got Logic, and now we're screen recording.
We're screen recording.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Cool. That should work.
Yep, we're gonna be.
And we're screen recording.
And there's a slight delay, which is hilarious too, because I clapped and then you clapped. But it'll line up for editing.
It's also possible that you're a seasoned musician, and maybe I was just out of time. I feel like that's like a pretty good possibility as well.
Well, I told you we were going to do the clap in at 1:15.
I clearly I missed that memo.
Well, how you doing, man?
Dude, I'm doing all right. Just I don't know, hanging out. It's been like a year. So I was thinking about it. The last time I saw you was when you came for the Owl's Den residency, and that was February of 2019 here in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
So that was the last time I actually saw you. I feel bad. I've made it to Colorado a couple times this last year, and they've just been like super short trips. Seeing a buddy that had moved out there and didn't get a chance to link up with you.
I know. I still want to, hang out, and I want to take you around my town.
Yeah, dude. Next Colorado visit is just gonna be to come see you.
It should be, and I think Portland and Denver are very similar cities in a lot of ways. It feels like at home to be in Portland, and it was funny when you were talking about coming out to Denver. You said, well, what's something Denver that I can do? I was like, oh, you should hit up Voodoo Donuts. And you're like, dude, that's Portland. That's a Portland thing. You guys just have one.
Dude, what about Twist and Shout Records, though, dude?
Twist and Shout Records, that's where it's at. We just went, before all this happened.
Dude, so good. I think that in Portland, we're pretty spoiled with some great record stores. There's 2 of them that are like, I'm always trying to decide which one is my favorite, and it's usually the one that I've been to most recently.
That's a good problem.
Just both so good.
Yep.
And Twist and Shout really that was up there for me. That place kind of blew my mind. I just really like the setup of it. It's huge, and they just have some really cool stuff there.
They do. Allie and I recently kind of restored our record collection. I've been doing it again, where we make a point to sit with the screen door open at night and listen to a record for us in the neighborhood, whether they like it or not. And so we've been, well, not in the last month, but right before this all started happening, we were running out to record stores. And when you go somewhere like Twist, it's you can spend hours in there.
Yeah, it's like a record store out of a movie, I feel like.
Yes. But you gotta show me the Portland record scene.
Oh, man. We have 2nd Avenue Records is downtown, and that place is really amazing. It's I think it's been there since the 80s, maybe a little earlier, but that place is wild because they don't have anything on like they don't have a computer system. They do everything by hand still.
Oh, I see.
And but if you just ask the people that work there where, like, if they have a record, they just know.
They know where it is.
It's incredible, dude. Like, oh, that record, my cousin goes in there and it just asks him all these obscure jazz records sometimes.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh, yeah, we usually have like 2 copies over there and every once in a while one over there. Yeah, we get them in pretty often. It's just like, what? Dude, how do you know everything in this store? And just mind-blowing that they're just operating on this no computer technology to inventory this store still, and it obviously works for them.
It's crazy, and I think to work at a record store, I mean, a lot of people are like, I like records, I'm a record fanatic. In order to actually work at a record store, I mean, you have to have a doctorate in record listening.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. And then we have Music Millennium, which is also amazing. That's on the east side. Pretty close to that spot that we all had breakfast that morning with Andrew. And who's the woman that you knew from Colorado that was here playing with Ela Bamba?
Julia,
yeah.
Julia Mendioleo. Yep, she's still playing with them.
Yeah, she is. And now my friend Isabeau is
Yes.
also playing in Ela Bamba.
She was playing in it then.
Yeah, I guess maybe she was.
Because she did the residency with me one night, and it was like...
Oh, that's right.
And because she didn't do the full leg of the tour, she was teaching or something, but she did like the Seattle and the Portland shows.
Yeah, she's actually going to be next week's episode of the podcast.
Yes.
And her debut EP is coming out, and it's so fucking good. It's really cool to see somebody take that much time before they put something out. Someone that's been playing music as long as her, is you get this first release that is just
giant,
pretty polished and mature, for
Right.
a first release. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I cannot say that about my first release or my third or second or fourth.
Well, you've
time.
been doing this a long time.
It takes time.
And you didn't wait,
Right.
Years to finally lay something down. So, I mean, that's the other end of it, is where you have all of this progress that's documented
Right.
over time, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're interesting approaches, and I think I'm really excited to hear what she comes up with, because I love her singing and songwriting, and we had so much fun together at the Owl's Den show, and I've been following her on the socials since. So I'm excited to hear it.
Do you still like to play the songs from your first releases? Or do many of them even make it into the sets these days?
I don't know that I like it. Some of them still get requested. On my live stream a couple weeks ago, I had to put the kibosh on any songs I wrote between the ages of 16 and 22. I was just like, stop. We're not gonna do Mountain Town. We're not gonna do I Sold My Soul to Robert Johnson. We've taken those out of the set list.
Those are no good anymore.
No good. But and that might be why people that have known me since then like to hear those. Just because I'm a different artist now, and they still want to hear those old ones. For whatever reason. I mean, the new ones especially, but it's fun on the live stream to say, hey, pull out that old school stuff, for nostalgia's sake.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to go that way for most artists and musicians. Everybody always wants to hear the old stuff still. And I think that's the hard part about like creating some sort of career that has longevity, to keep putting out things that people actually do want to listen to and not just want to hear the old stuff. Because I don't know, you see that as time goes on, I think, with certain bands that are touring and they're still just only touring off of things that they made 20 years ago or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And no one really cares that much when they play the new stuff. The crowd is clearly not that attentive. Maybe that's the time where they go to the bar, they're just kind of talking. But then you have the bands that just their fan base is just incredibly loyal and trusting in whatever they're going to put out next, and they know all the words to every record. So it's wild to see. It's
interesting. I think a lot about this, and you can play a lot of games of Would You Rather with your musician friends, right? I think about bands that the odds are so stacked against them if they put out anything new and when they put out new things, because nobody cares. Like, everybody still loves the Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones are amazing, one of the greatest bands ever. They put out a new album of all originals. They're going to make millions of dollars off of it because they're the Stones, but people aren't going to go to their show and want to hear those songs. People don't want to hear. Billy Joel hasn't released anything since like '98 or something for that reason. He's like he's got all this stuff, and that's what people want to hear.
Right.
But that can be torturous too, and there are those artists that are not on that level, but they're selling out 1,000, 2,000 seat rooms, and their fan base is with them all the way. And I almost think in some ways that might even be more rewarding at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's cool to see an artist that can keep the attention of the audience, though, and where everybody's stoked that they're playing the new stuff as well.
Well, do you think there's a correlation between somebody who getting too much attention off the bat means that there's a ceiling, right? Or, if you get
absolutely.
As opposed to somebody who gradually moves up can sort of keep their people.
Yeah, man. I think that's also I think that's true, and I think that I think it's harder for those people that just gain immediate success, that overnight success, because maybe you weren't actually ready for it as an artist or a musician. The person that within their first 20 songs, one of them becomes that big hit, and then it's just like, I've only been playing music for a year or two. I wasn't ready to have all these musical chops and this like sense of direction for what I should do with my career from now on.
It defines them as an artist when they don't know themselves as an artist.
Yeah, where the bands that like kind of, I feel like maybe have a lot of that middle class success in some ways. I feel like, a lot of those more independent bands, the ones that also maybe don't have to have their direction compromised so much, and they don't have to, work with so many producers and other songwriters maybe that they don't want to work with and more just thrown in a room with.
Right.
It seems like a lot of those bands have those kind of loyal fan bases that do want to hear that next record. I don't know. I follow a decent amount of bands in that world. I would say one that maybe I've brought up on my podcast a lot, and just a band that I love is this band Thrice, and like a post-rock band that has been around for 20 years or so now, maybe a little more. And I don't know, it's just really cool to go to those shows, and you you show up and they play, they're going to play 4 to 6 songs off that new record. They don't give a fuck. They're going to play that shit. And then most of the people in that room, they're going to know all the words to those songs still too. And that shit is fun to see because everybody is still really hyped too when we get to hear the songs off those early records too. And it's just kind of this thing where usually I'll end up going with my buddy Bert. Shout out to my buddy Bert, man. Like he's my thrice ride or die concert buddy. And
Yeah.
I just remember going like the last time he was like, dude, what do you want them to play tonight? And I was like, I don't give a fuck, dude. I'm down for any song in this catalog. So like it's kind of fun to go to shows like that too, where you don't have any expectations for what they're gonna play, and it's just like, yeah, I just want to hear whatever you guys want to play because I'm down for it all.
You don't need to hear their Freebird. You're gonna love you're gonna love their first record. You're gonna love their most recent record for different reasons. And in those cases, it's you truly have fallen in love with you've truly fallen in love with the artist and their brand. That's what you're. It's not you're not falling in love with the song. You've fallen in love with this individual or this band and what they do. And no matter what they do, you're still gonna dig it. And that's a real fan, I think, that you've made.
Yeah, it's for sure. I mean, I hope that I don't like. I'm probably going to like anything or most of what they put out. I hope I don't like anything that I wouldn't like. I shouldn't like. I guess I don't know. Just because I'm a fan,
Right.
But like thus far, I just feel like it's not even just me. It's like the fan base for this band all like agrees. Like the majority agrees that like, hey, we're all on board with this new shit.
Yeah.
And we're all here to see that too. Where I'll go see some other bands that maybe have put out a couple records the last 10 years, but most of the people that are going to those shows are there to see them play the old stuff. And then it does get to those like very non-attentive moments, those bathroom moments, go to the bar moments of like when the new songs are being played. So,
Right.
but hopefully people are just making the records they want to make. Hopefully that's what you're doing over there with your new jams.
I'm sitting in the producer chair for the first time and doing a lot of the recording at home too. So it's doing a lot of it in the studio, but a lot at home, and it's been a lot of fun to sit down and write and arrange horn parts and write and arrange vocal parts and sit at home with a guitar solo for 3 hours and really get it right, not paying $1 a minute. No, it's been cool because we can dial it in with the band and then take it home and work with it. But I feel better about this stuff than anything I've done because I've gotten really involved with the recording process and really involved with the production. Kind of for the first time, I didn't really understand, or I didn't really have an appreciation for production, but I've spent a lot of time in Logic over the last couple years. Went back and studied music for film and television, arranging for an orchestra for a little over a year through Berklee Online, and I've just been in it on the production level, and I'm really excited about the stuff for that reason.
On the previous records, had you worked with producers on those?
Yeah. So Chris Daniels produced Reasons for Departure, which came out in 2018, and he did a phenomenal job. He's was a professor of mine in college, actually, a music business professor, but he's been in the scene forever and has toured all over the world with Chris Daniels and the Kings. And then the engineer produced my first 2 records, and my third record was by my buddy Nick Clark. So I think right away I wasn't even really aware of the role of a producer. So we just like, let's make a record, and the engineer was great and knew what he was doing, so naturally he was going to produce it.
I think right around the time you came here was when you were just getting going with that program you did at Berklee.
Yeah.
What inspired you to want to do that?
I've always been really into movie music. I've always loved listening to orchestra soundtracks. And I just think the melodies are great and all the counter melodies working within each other. It's really advanced. It's really cool. And I'm fascinated by how music has a very clear emotion. You can do a chord progression, like a minor 1 to a 4 chord, and it sounds spacey. Or, there's certain music theory things that define an emotion. And beyond that, a lot of great film composers have defined the emotion themselves. And so now people associate that emotion with the composer's music that he made for it. And to me, that's fascinating. So I did it for that reason. What I didn't expect was to fall in love with the art of production, and that's really what I've gotten out of it. Is I go listen to records now and try to hear exactly how they're made, as opposed to write a song and then just go record it with the band. So it's opened me up musically a lot, I should say.
Yeah, do you find yourself kind of maybe just checking out records just by producer too? Like finding a certain producer and then just kind of going through their catalog rather than checking out records by band?
Yeah, I'm starting to a little bit. I've been I listen to, records by artists that I really like, but if I go get 3 Chuck Prophet records or 3 Anders Osborne records or Jason Isbell records, for instance, and he's been getting produced by Dave Cobb, and you're like, okay, what else has this guy produced? Holy shit. And then is there a theme here? Does he, and these great producers, they have trademarks, but at the same time, they do what's best for the artist's style, and I think that's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting to see producers that have just worked with tons of different bands and to see the mark that they put on records and that sound that seems to like be this through line on each record in some way.
Absolutely. It's awesome. And I've produced a few tracks for other artists now as well in the last few months, and that's a fascinating thing to do. I love it.
Yeah, what's that experience been like for you? Do you feel like you're trying to approach each artist differently, or is there like some sort of model that you're bringing into it before interacting with them?
I think I'm figuring that out as I go. I don't know that I could do any genre right now. I don't know that I would be a great producer on a hip-hop record. But with singer-songwriters and rock and roll and stuff, and Americana music, the stuff that I like, I feel like I can do a good job of it. In terms of my process, I want the artist I want to bring out who the artist is as an artist. But what I've done for these several tracks is sat down, they played me iPhone demos. I say, okay, let's try X, Y, and Z with the lyrics. Let's try X, Y, and Z with the form. Once we get that put together, I take it home and I record everything myself at home. I just demo it just to sit within the song, whether it's a drum beat or a bass line or guitar, organ. I just kind of structure it together, and then we sit down with it from there and say, well, what works? What do we need to add? What do we need to take away? And and I'm learning every day.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's the cool thing about you kind of producing in your lane right now, like in that singer-songwriter, rock and roll, like bluesy rock area, is that, you can go home and do something like that. You're a super capable musician, and I would imagine that's where you can offer the most right now too.
Absolutely.
To someone else. So when it comes to actually recording those songs, are you finding yourself playing a lot then on the records as well?
Yes, I have been, and I think that's my strength as a producer at this point. Less in the engineer lane, although I'm getting better. Some producers are doing all of the engineering, but it's the instrumental thing in the musical thing. And so there's been songs where I'm just in the band, if we're cutting it live and I'm the guitar player. But then there's been stuff where I'm layering in a lap steel and an organ and a piano, and I know that's fun to be able to bring that to the table.
Hell yeah, dude.
So.
Do you feel like that's informing your own songwriting too? Like all of those experiences?
100%. I've really noticed when I fall into a hole form-wise or style-wise, not a hole, but um, where I'm able to categorize myself a little too well. Like, hey, I'm doing this in all of my songs. And by producing these tracks for somebody else and analyzing these tracks, they do this other thing that's different. That's cool, form-wise, whatever. And so I learn from them and how they do things, and it sort of changes my own approach as a writer and composer as well.
Yeah, for sure. That's rad, man. It's cool that you're leaning into that stuff. And I don't know, you just strike me as somebody that's just going to continue to add more tools to the belt, you know? Like over time, now you're becoming like more of that producer role and like learning more about the engineering side, which is obviously going to be like an incredible tool for you moving forward.
I think if I just keep trying to get better and better at my craft in every way that I can, eventually something good will happen.
That's the hope, man.
That's the hope. What's
at least
go ahead.
At least you know you're fucking going for it, you know, and
Yeah.
trying to do those things to move the needle forward and whatnot.
Absolutely. And even if I don't know how to move the needle forward, doing something will at least inspire that in some way, you know?
Yeah, dude. Absolutely.
So I remember last time we've chatted a couple times on the phone, but we were hanging out in Portland. We went to this great sub shop. Was it Charlie's
Deli,
Charlie's
dude.
Deli.
It's a fucking sleeper of Portland. Sandwiches right there.
No,
yeah.
There was nobody in there.
It's
the
a sleeper.
4 times I went that week, and but we went there and had some lunch. And it was real cool. And I remember we were talking. You've been a big influencer in the Portland scene for a long time. Management, podcast. You're there. Everybody knows Dan. Whenever I meet somebody from Portland, they know who you are. So you're doing something right. But I remember in our conversation, you were sort of reconsidering who you want to be in the scene, how you want to be in the scene. Where do you stand right now with all that?
Oh man, the ever changing, question. I feel like I'm just like, I feel like I'm trying to always analyze that in some way, just to, do some inventory on what I'm about and like what's actually working and like what's worth the energy. But obviously right now there's no shows to be booking or promoting or anything like that.
Right.
So I think when I first started doing the podcast, my intention was to just do this podcast, and then I started meeting a lot of people and having so many bands come through and just kind of starting to see like bills or lineups of bands that I would want to see in a night. And it was just like, you know what? I should just try to put something together. And I did that a few times, and it was pretty cool. And I started doing it more and more. And I think that is the thing that will burn me out the quickest, is trying to put together those live events.
Yes.
So what I had settled on before all this went down is that I think maybe what I need to do to still enjoy doing that aspect of things is maybe just throwing 1 to 2 events each year and focusing on those 2 things instead of trying to throw, I don't know, 10 to 15 events every year.
Right.
And his, I don't know, booking things is exhausting in itself. The communication that it takes to make things happen is can be difficult, but I think the biggest thing for me is that doing this on the local level, where it's still like pretty hit or miss on how many people are going to show up to an event, even if you have some banging lineup. Especially here in Portland, we have so many music venues now that sometimes getting that Friday or Saturday night at the venue that you want isn't always a sure thing anymore.
Right.
It's just like you got to start considering, hey, maybe I should have the best show on a Wednesday night because there's going to be less competition and things like that.
Right.
But the thing is just that I rode high for a while on having pretty successful shows in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then I hit a rut with it, or maybe not even a rut, but where it was just became a little more inconsistent, where it'd be like, oh, I have like a really great turnout, and then maybe the next time I have not a good turnout, and then I have another 2 great turnouts, and then a dud here and there. And I had a couple nights where I really fucking went for it and put out some guarantees for bands in a bill that I really believed in, and I lost my ass one night. Sorry, I'm getting all fucking tangled up over here on my mic situation, but I just had a couple of those nights that kind of like emotionally drained me. And I think also when I put my name in front of somebody and I'm putting together a bill, I feel responsible in some way that about the turnout and what that is.
Right.
Even though it should be like a pretty equal thing amongst the bands, especially at the level that I'm usually dealing with,
right.
Where it's just like, hey guys, like, yeah, it's rad that I have this podcast to promote the show every week for the next month or two, but also this doesn't really necessarily equate to 50 to 100 people showing up to this show, like if 10 to 20 people show up that listen to this podcast, like that's a win,
Yeah.
So it's got to be like the group effort thing, but it's also I don't know, man, that can be emotionally draining on me because I do feel responsible. So on the nights where it isn't a great turnout, I don't feel great. Like so it's just a little draining. So I've kind of figured that part out, and it's just like, hey, like let's just dial it back then and maybe focus on doing these 1 to 2 events so that I can put the other energy into shit that I actually enjoy doing.
Right.
And it's still doing, like, the number one thing is still like doing this podcast. I still love doing this podcast, and I love it so much that I have, 1.5 other podcasts now, so it's like, so yeah, I think I've kind of like assessed what's important, and I'm not really doing any of the artist management. Brother Not Brother went on hiatus, and I'm kind of helping another buddy do some release work. I think I'm like definitely about like helping people, work on release stuff and help them and consult with them in some way on things like that. I think that's where like I love those meetings. Those
Right.
meetings are fun. I like being in the room for those types of things. I had the pleasure of helping Isabeau plan some release, some press stuff, and I don't know, just being thought of even in that way by people is very cool for me still, because I'm like, this is all just fucking, I started this to have fun and to just get to know the artists that I really dug in this town, and it's become so much more. So yeah.
I think there's something really cool about what you are and who you are and what you do. Excuse me. It's most people in the music industry, or most people that I run into, or most people that are doing things online, are musicians that are trying to draw traction for themselves. Of course. That
for sure.
me.
It's your business.
Yeah.
That's your business, man.
It's your business. You have to. And you came in to the business to meet people because you're a fan of music and because you wanted to spread the good word of music, and that's genuinely what you're trying to do. You're not saying that in hopes that somebody will subscribe to your channel, right? And you can show them your music. You are a music enthusiast first and foremost, and that makes you just a great person to be around, a great resource for musicians, and a great person to know. And like I said earlier, an influencer in the scene, because you're everywhere. You're a fan, and you really are. You're not just going out on a Friday night so that your friend will come see your band. You're there because you love it and you want to be there, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I can't say that it's all like, that there's no selfish aspects to it. I'm obviously like trying to build my own podcast brand too, in hopes that like I can take this to a different level, and so that it maybe provides some financial, like figure out how to monetize it in some ways to keep it sustainable. Just to allow more energy to be put into it. But yeah, I don't know. It's just been so cool. Like, I never thought I would be this part, like have any role in a community, like a music community in a city, like a cool city, quote unquote,
A very
like,
cool city.
And like I've never been a part of like this deep into a community, and I still don't know half the people in it. Like because it's always growing and changing, and how bands are always breaking up. There's so many of the bands that have been on this podcast over the last 4 years don't even exist anymore. It's like it's a ever changing thing, but it's I don't know, man. It's cool, and I just always love to get to see somebody perform before I get to have them on the podcast, because it's always going to inform the conversation differently if I get to see how it's done live, and I think you catch so much different stuff when you get to see a performer do their thing rather than just hear the record.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
How
many episodes are you on now?
Oh, you're going to be episode 210 here this week.
Coming out on Friday?
Coming out on Friday, episode 210. Fucking doing it, bud.
You're going to be 35, I think. I'll have to double check that.
Nice.
I've been doing it every other week, and I had a season break for about 3 months, so
I'm
behind.
Every other week is so smart, and I in some ways wish that that's how I kept it, but I've been doing that every week for a long time, and it's cool, man. How have you been enjoying hosting a podcast and facilitating these conversations with musicians? Middle Class Rockstar is the podcast. We're doing this crazy like crossover thing. So I'm just trying to make sure your end is informed as well as mine on this thing.
My end is going to inform your end that your podcast is Dan Cable Presents.
But yeah, like what is that experience been like for you?
Well, I absolutely love doing it. I got a little burnt out towards the end of the first season because I was rushing to get the episodes done. Like, oh crap. It was really good for me to set the deadline and do it. And the first 10 episodes were the trial run. If I couldn't commit to 10 episodes, it wouldn't happen. Now I'm in a routine, and you just do it. But I love doing it. I love sitting. I love being the interviewer, and it's great. I'm having conversations. I'm learning great things about the industry. I get to sit down with friends that we normally wouldn't see each other. You and I live across the country. And even friends in Denver who we wouldn't necessarily call each other up to grab lunch because we live on the other side of town and we're busy. It's an excuse to get together and hang out. That aspect I love. I think I can do some things better, though. I think I need to do a better job on the promotion front. I want to get it out to more people, and maybe that's honing in on talking to people in a certain genre, or, right now
dude.
It's all kinds of artists. It's all kinds of music biz people. It's not a music business podcast. It's not a human interest podcast. It's
right.
Sort of all over the place. And I've kind of been thinking, how can I hone it in a little bit and really grow the audience steadily in a better way than I've been doing?
You're right, dude. This is been in my brain a lot lately. I was thinking about this last night. Am I not approaching this in a good way because I've kept it spread out genre-wise? And sometimes I'll hit these pockets where it's singer-songwriters for 4 or 5 weeks, and then it's 4 or 5 weeks of hip-hop and rap. And yeah, maybe that's where I'm losing people a little bit, But also, I don't know. Like, I'm also about, this is all the different kinds of music that I enjoy and like too. So I'm like, I don't necessarily want to limit it in that way either, but I'm also have been thinking about that a lot. Hey, maybe I should just zero in on singer-songwriter and rock and roll and indie rock and things of that nature, and try to keep it all in that pocket. But I don't know, then I feel like I'm missing out on something or something like that.
Yeah, it's weird. You want to keep it broad so you don't miss out on anything, and at the same time, it seems like you got to make it smaller to expand the audience. But you look at some podcasts, like, of course, the classic example, Joe Rogan or WTF. They're so huge they can talk to whoever the hell they want.
Yeah, because the guests have the name too.
Yes.
I mean, I think for both of those guys and a lot of successful podcasts at this point where, like, you know, Rogan and Mark Maron can kind of bring on whomever they want at this point, and they're going to have an audience.
Right. Because of who
just
they are.
because of who they are. But I don't know, even Maron will say sometimes, hey, I know that we're getting a lot of new listeners this week because of this guest that's on the podcast, and that's very much the case with my podcast. You know, like the bigger episodes is because I drew a bigger name.
Yep.
You know, and which is really great. But I don't know. I think that's where my struggle is, because people like that and other podcasts that I listen to have been such a big influence on this. And the reason I wanted to do it is because I wanted to, you know, just connect with a bunch of different people that are playing a bunch of different kinds of music. And I think that just brings a bunch of different perspectives in, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as far as branding's concerned, everybody knows that beard. Everyone knows that Daryl beard.
Dude, I don't know.
Your podcast is known in all genres.
My buddy has challenged me to maybe lose the beard for the sake of the COVID, the coronavirus, because they're encouraging. I've heard that they're encouraging people with big beards that it's not a great idea to have that during this time.
Oh, for what, germs?
Yeah, I guess they're like using a mask isn't as effective, I guess, with the beard in the way.
I see.
So I don't know. This might be the time, man, where I just fucking go mustache.
Dude.
I haven't seen my face in years.
You know what would have been good for my podcast is if you shaved your beard on it. Like, if you did it like right now, you know?
I'm going to have to do that. Like, that's going to have to be its own video that I do for my YouTube channel, the shaving of my beard.
Yeah. Yeah.
My girlfriend's going to be pissed.
You have a girlfriend.
I do.
That likes beards.
Yeah. She does. I'm pretty sure that was a part of the. I think she would be none too stoked if she came to my house and I just had a mustache.
Do you think maybe she doesn't even know if she's attracted to your face yet?
Oh, I don't even know. I told her that it's probably not a good idea that anyone sees my face. Like I said, I haven't seen it in years, you know?
Yeah.
So
how long have you had that thing?
Oh man. I don't know. I feel like I've had a pretty large beard since the age of 25. So about almost 10 years now.
It's impressive.
But I don't even know. Like the last time I trimmed it down really short, I was just, every time I do that, I'm just usually very disappointed in myself. So I just don't think it's beneficial for anyone.
Yeah.
Or my self-esteem. So it's
Hey man, if I could, I would. That's what I say about people with great beards. If I could, I would. So you you finding your footing in the scene and always analyzing what to do next in the podcast. It's a segue for me. I want to ask you about your other podcasts, because not only do you have one podcast now, you also Dan Cable Presents, which we're on. Dan Cable Presents / Middle Class Rockstar. But you also have Between the Pipes. You're a huge hockey fan. You play hockey still. You're a goalie with all the gear and everything. And then you recently started with a previous guest on my podcast and yours, Andrew Harrison, another podcast called Bible Buds. And
great episode of Middle Class Rockstar with Andrew Harrison.
Yes.
I really it was fun to listen to you to chat. I think that's the best when you can put on a podcast and you know both of the people involved, and it starts to feel like any other podcast that you listen to.
Yeah.
That's where it's really at. Like, yeah, that was a very cool experience for me to get to listen to that, just because it was about some things that I didn't even know about Andrew, like some of his trajectory of where he got to. But
I love that.
yeah, man, messing with some other podcasts. I honestly haven't done Between the Pipes in about a year, so I don't want to take any credit for that. I did put out 4 episodes last year, and I hope it has a return in at some point, because I do love hockey. And yeah, I play some beer league hockey usually a couple nights a week. That's probably the thing that's got me most bugged out about this quarantine life, is not being able to play hockey a couple nights a week. Is fucking, it's messing with me a little bit. But so I haven't done that
Yeah.
in a hot minute. But this Bible Buds podcast that I've been doing with Andrew,
great. I love the cover.
dude,
I love
gotta
it.
shout out my friend Chris Spicer, who's been a guest on the Dan Cable Presents podcast with his band Camp Crush a couple times, and just someone that I met real early on moving up to Portland. One of my first friends up here. He did the logo for us. But yeah, the premise for this thing, which was pretty much just this stone thought that I had a couple times, that I thought it would be really great to start this podcast in which it just gets super baked and smoke some of that reefer, and then do a little Bible study almost. I grew up I grew up Catholic.
Yeah, me too.
And nothing militant in my house. I usually went to church most Sundays with my mom, and but never really had a strong connection to it. It was just kind of part of my family's culture. You went to church on Sunday. I was Catholic or whatever, and yeah, and then just kind of skipped out on religion for a while, and just always kind of had some spiritual curiosity, though, for sure. And I told Andrew about this one night. I was like, dude, I just want to do this podcast where you and I get super ripped and we talk about the Bible, because I know that he grew up religious and a little more into it than I was. He knows way more about the Bible than I do. Like, he's very familiar with it, where I am not at all. This is kind of like my first time going through. So what we do is we pretty much do a Bible study, and more or less we pick a part of the Bible to both read, and then we get together and we discuss what we have read, and we get super baked before, and we have these stoned conversations with each other about the Bible. And it's been fun, man. We're just like kind of attacking it from a non-Christian perspective. Neither of us identify that way. Both spiritually curious, and we're not really trying to necessarily tear it down and poke holes, because it's pretty easy to do with something that's so like far out as the Bible.
Yeah.
But we're just seeing what kind of truths we can pull out of it for ourselves, and just getting each other's interpretations is funny sometimes. And just, I don't know, we're probably attacking it a little more mystical and psychedelic than anything else. We're just
Right.
There's usually at least 2 moments in each episode where we're just like, yeah, and this is where Jesus is on his psychedelic trip, and make some reference to that. But we've also the last couple episodes we've had guests on, and that's a big goal for us, is to have some people on to talk about their experiences, whether they identify as a Christian or any other religion currently, or they
You had
do not.
Andrew's brother on, right?
Dude, Andrew's brother was so sick to have on, because he's this PhD in religious
He knows a whole
studies.
lot about the Bible.
So much. And that's the cool thing, is like, we've had guests on the last couple weeks, and both of them have really informed my perspective now of reading it. As I go forward, I have these little pieces of knowledge to kind of like take with me to the next episode. So that's been really cool, man. It's really just us fucking around. We probably have like 10 people that are paying attention to it right now, and it's just so fun to start something like that and not have any expectations. That's where like it's all like, I don't care if anyone listens to it. It's super fun to get together with Andrew every week and do this thing.
It's an excuse to hang out with your buddy, and it was funny the way you just described it, because I was actually going to ask. I can't tell. I've known you guys for a long time, and I know. Yeah, I've known you both for a while, especially Andrew, and I've known, I've seen him go through different phases spiritually. Even though we've had several years of being rather disconnected, I've seen this over time, and I was trying to listen as if I didn't know either of you. And I thought, if I didn't know either of you, it would be sometimes hard to tell if you guys are deeply religious and just talking about it in like an acid trip sort of way, or if you're ripping on the Bible. And that's what was so funny about it, is you can't, like, you guys are just talking about the Bible high, and that's what's beautiful about it. And when you hear a familiar Bible story, I mean, it reminds me of Drunken History a little bit, We're just like, so like Cain and Abel, the brothers, one of them killed the other one. And I loved it. I just thought it was, I think it's highly entertaining. My podcast listening has gone way, way down because in quarantine, I go running every morning and I listen to music. I got to listen to a beat, but I'm not driving 100 miles a day anymore. So I haven't listened to a podcast in 4 weeks, to be honest. Anybody's.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. If I wasn't going, I'm still going to work every day. And if I wasn't, I would probably be listening to a lot less podcasts. It's probably good for people that I'm still going to work, because if I wasn't, dude, I would just be putting out like 5 podcast episodes a week. That's all I would be doing. It would just be podcasting. I like recording conversations probably to a fault. Like my cousin and I just rebooted this podcast that we started before I started Dan Cable Presents called I Dig Records, where we do like, he picks a record, I pick a record, we both listen to it and we discuss, and then we play the record in the background during certain parts for context and whatnot, and play a couple jams off the record. But we just started doing that, and I released the first episode of it. I'm just putting it in my Dan Cable Presents feed, and I'm going to try and release one every other week while he's just sitting at home doing nothing. But he was telling me the other day, he's just like, I love that both of us really enjoy spending our time hanging out with the mics on. Like, we're just both really into just recording all these conversations that we're having. So
yeah, it's a blast. It's blast.
Super fun.
I wanted to mention too, before I forget, in terms of Bible Buds, Andrew's first 2 EPs that came out when he was in high school, and I have copies of both of them, are both very spiritual albums, or religious albums.
Oh, really?
I mean, they were like Christian albums. Yeah.
You have those?
I have them.
Oh, please do send them over. He definitely hasn't shown me these records, so I'd love to like surprise him on maybe a future episode of Bible Buds and be like, dude, I just want to first start this episode off by talking about some early music that you put out, and just talking about that. That'd be
a track, play
great.
Elohim,
Ooh.
Just play it.
Oh, dude, I would love that so much.
Yeah.
So what have you been doing during this quarantine? Because you're somebody that plays so many shows every year. You're on the road a lot, gigging all year, and now you're in this spot where you can't play live shows. And I know that I've been talking to a lot of musicians that aren't really finding this inspiring in a way where they're writing a bunch of tunes right now. Where are you at with things right now?
I'm inspired 1,000%, and
I'm
making the best. I'm making the best of the time. No doubt it sucks, but I'm making the best of it, and I'm enjoying certain aspects of it, and that's what I'm focusing on. First off, the important thing is everybody's health and safety. So, when it's a life or death situation for so many people, your agenda means nothing. It's no longer important, and I respect that, and that's how it should be. But that aside, this is how it is. I'm sitting in my room, and you're sitting in yours. The live thing, the not being able to play live totally stinks. Music keeps me up at night and gets me out of bed in the morning. And I wanted to be a musician because I wanted to play live. I listened to CDs and pictured myself as the guitar player or the lead singer or the keyboard player, and I pictured myself in front of all those people as if it was me singing the song. And if it weren't for the live performance aspect, I wouldn't be doing music. We didn't have YouTube when I was a little kid or a bunch of social media, so I didn't necessarily grow up in the age of I'm going to be an Instagrammer, I'm going to be a YouTuber. Everything I do to promote myself is to get more people out to my live shows. So that stinks. We'd be in Canada right now. We had I invested a lot in this Canadian run, and we have people up there that come see us that feel like family, and so that stinks. But I'm home. I've been spending a lot of time in the studio. I've been working on album tracks with the band that are incomplete. I did a Graceland cover that we're finishing up. That's a totally different arrangement where I collaborated with a percussionist. I played all the instruments except for the percussion, and it's fun. I'm teaching Zoom lessons every day, so I'm getting to still see my students, and that's been a fun experience doing the online lesson thing. And I've been writing. I've written several songs in here, and even when a song doesn't come out, I'm still writing stuff down because this is such a bizarre situation. And I'm spending quality time. You know, my girlfriend and I just moved into this place right as the quarantine started, and our day is planned around our meals, which has never happened. It's a quick grab Taco Bell between lessons. I'm home at 9:30 from my lesson. She's up at 6 to go teach, and we've gotten to cook together and have a drink on the porch together and watch a TV show together. And I treasure that, and I realize that this amount of quality time is fleeting. You know?
Yeah, dude, absolutely. You also feel like maybe this is kind of like the ideal perfect time in where you're at musically, and this kind of geeking out on production right now, that this couldn't have happened at a better time for you in some ways?
In some ways, yes. I'm torn, and I'm trying, like I said, focus on the good things.
Yeah.
In the production thing, I'm making content, and I'm making good content, and I'm working on building my socials because that's what I can do to make a better live show when it's over. So that's good. I'm a little, I've been a little concerned lately in general, and especially because this has happened. I'll be 29 in August, which I know is still young, but I feel like once you get into your 30s, it gets a lot harder to establish yourself. You don't have to be big yet, but it gets a lot harder to be well established. And I feel like I'm not well established yet, and I need to be out on the road. I don't have kids yet, but I don't know what that's going to look like in 5 or 6 years. And before that kind of thing happens, I need to be more established than I am now, and I feel like I'm losing up to a year of my prime when it talks about touring, and that scares me, honestly, in terms of getting to where I want to be, which is an artist who sells out 500 to 1,000 cap rooms across the country.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you can establish yourself in other ways too, as like leaning into the production thing and producing other artist stuff as well. I would imagine that that's like a great way to establish yourself moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's there's always a new branch to come off the tree, and you never know which one's gonna. I'm gonna stop that metaphor. You get what I'm talking about.
No, yeah, for sure. But again, and all the times I've gotten to spend time with you or talk to you about this stuff, and just to see how you always seem to be trying to move shit forward in some way and like learn something new. Like, it just seems like you're going to continue to do that so that you can get to where you want to be. And
absolutely.
I don't know. that drive is very impressive and inspiring that you seem to like continue on with that.
I appreciate that. No, it's I will, and I will until the day I die, no matter what.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I don't know, it seemed like you had a couple pretty big shows last year playing the Ogden Theater. Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
The Ogden?
yeah, the Ogden. Yes.
The Ogden?
Yeah, we've been. These last few months have been a bunch of cool local shows. We did the Ogden with Co Wetzel. I got to do a couple dates in D.C. and Denver with Chuck Prophet, who's one of my favorite songwriters. I got to do a show with Brett Dennen. So there's been some cool stuff, and I feel fortunate that I got in like all these badass shows within the last 3 or 4 months before this all happened. So
Yeah, dude, because who knows what it's going to be like even when we're allowed to have shows again.
right.
Like what the capacity of these shows will be like and who's willing to just go out and be in a room with a bunch of people right away.
Red Rocks isn't gonna be doing shows next week. That's for sure.
Yeah, dude. How has this changed your teaching approach much? Like, has it been pretty seamless to just be able to do this in another room, or is it really fucking hard sometimes when you want to like be able to physically show the student on the guitar or the keys?
Well, it depends on the student. There's students that are visual learners. There's students where I've had them for 6 years, and I just want to reach through the computer and grab their hands and show and place it because that's how they learn. They need
Right.
they if I grab their two hands and show them the syncopation, then they just play it instantly. So that's a little tricky, but I think I've become a better teacher, and I think the lessons have been more valuable. I'm not drained from a 40-mile commute each way. I have multiple camera angles set up, and then I send supplementary material too. I have Marco Polo set up, and I send them a video of how to play everything because I don't have to commute. I send them a quick video, and I think the lessons have actually gotten better, and I hope that people I can keep doing some online lessons because it's simpler in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask is like, do you think that this is probably going to be more of the future of what you're doing for yourself when things do resume to being, a little bit more normalized about being able to hang out in the room with people?
If I can, absolutely. If people will do it. It's just a matter of the families. I love doing the online thing because it keeps me 3 feet away from my refrigerator and my bed and out of my car, and I love that. I love being close. It adds a lot of productivity to my day to not have to commute anywhere. So
Yeah, and maybe getting to give lessons to people that aren't really in the Denver area necessarily. You don't have to even focus on that demographic.
you can expand out. No, absolutely. And so what about for you? How are I'm sure you're going crazy not playing hockey.
Yeah,
Are you how are you doing with all this? What's been positive for you and what's been negative?
So, like I said, I'm still going to a day job every day. So I feel like my situation is a little bit different than those who are really quarantined.
Sure.
So my day job can be a little stressful, is just because it's just, it's different circumstances right now, and business is kind of unpredictable. So we're just trying to figure out what the new normal is right now. But I am working shortened hours. We're open half of our hours now. So the positive thing is that I have maybe an extra couple hours throughout the day. When I get home or even before work, I go in a little later. So I'm just trying to, I'm trying to make the most of that time. I'm trying to use that to do the stuff that I would like to do, like doing these extra podcast episodes with my cousin, or, Andrew and I are like on a weekly thing with our Bible Buds podcast. It. So like we've already kind of like committed to this weekly release. So there's like that's going on. But yeah, I'm just trying to also, I'm trying to appreciate things slowing down, because I am somebody that's out a couple nights a week playing hockey, and I'm usually trying to go to at least 1 or 2 shows each week, and then I have the podcast to do. So it's good for me for things to slow down a bit for sure. I'm just trying to use the time wisely. I see a lot of there seems to be 2 camps of people. I see these things getting posted every once in a while that say, "Hey, don't be so hard on yourself if you're not doing all those things that you said you wanted to do while you're in quarantine."
When you had time, yeah.
And I appreciate that, and like you shouldn't necessarily like make it an overwhelming thing for yourself, because I think that can lead to other mental health things where it becomes really overwhelming. But also, if you're really at home for these 3-4 weeks, 6 weeks, if it becomes that, and you're not doing shit that you wanted to do, like I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense to me either. Like,
yeah.
Like, but I have learned that I'm somebody that ties self-worth to my productivity. So like I also have to realize that for myself. But man, if I was at home during this quarantine, like I said, this is good for people. I would just be doing so many podcasts.
So you're in that camp. You're in the same camp as I am. You're in that.
Yeah, dude, I would just be like
people.
trying to do shit. Like right now,
Yeah.
I'm trying to even still find out how to be productive. I'm fucking trying to figure out how to not get fat while I'm not playing hockey. I'm like trying to, you're doing a great job you keep up that morning run, which is like, that impresses the fuck out of me because I'm not a great runner, and it's hard for me to want to do something like that. So it's nice that you have like, that's part of like your normalized exercise, right?
Well, that's where I forget about life, and I don't even realize I'm running. I just listen to music. But it's
right
now, and I've always been a big runner, but now in quarantine, it's a big deal for me because that's my big outing for the day.
Yeah,
that's like
nice.
All right, I'm going to the mall. I'm going on my run.
Yeah, and like I got to figure out how to take a walk. Like put a joint together and at least take a walk.
Got to. Yes, you should do it. You should do it every day. Go walk by the river or whatever it is.
Yeah, man. I know you gotta probably get rolling here.
Yeah, I wanted to. Do you have a final question? I have a final question.
No, man. I think that like you've definitely these are the things that I wanted to talk to you about. I just wanted to see how you've remained your productivity, and like I assume that you were gonna be in that camp of the ones that like really try to use this as a time to grind and try to figure out how to restructure some things for yourself during this time. I would imagine
Absolutely.
Just how you can be more efficient, more effective with what you're doing, and it's so sick that you're leaning into like the production and getting more comfortable with engineering stuff. Like I think that's just going to be so rad for you moving forward, and also getting to use those tools with other people and not just your own productions, because like you said, that's obviously going to reveal pieces to you and inform your own songwriting down the road too.
Absolutely. As far as the getting things done, you're in the same boat as me, and I feel guilty at night when I don't accomplish everything I want to, and it's
for sure, man.
Because I feel like we need to take full advantage of this time, because we probably won't have another time in our lives where we can sit around this much. So it's a valuable time, and I just every night when I go to bed I think about how much more stuff there is to do. It's never ending, but that's what keeps it exciting, right?
Yeah, dude, absolutely.
I wanted to ask you a question. As an influencer, what should artists be doing right now, in your opinion? We're not playing live shows. What should artists be doing? Should everybody have a podcast? Should everybody be live streaming?
So that's where I'm going to take it. I think, in my opinion, one of the things that the comedians of the world have done such a great job with is starting podcasts, and so that people can get to know them. And I think that gives the people a reason, more of an attachment to go to their shows when they're coming through town.
Yeah.
Even if it is like on an more independent level. And I'm just kind of surprised that more musicians haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
And I know some are, and there's probably more than I know of. And also, like, I understand that the podcast market is incredibly saturated. There's thousands of podcasts going, new ones every single day, and it's really hard to get any visibility. But I don't know. I think the more you can get like engaged with people on a level where maybe you're just having conversations, and it doesn't have to be long. I don't think. I think it can be like a shorter form thing, even if it's like a 15-minute thing that you put out every week. I think that's definitely a helpful thing. You know, I think podcasts are becoming more and more mainstream every day. And I think it's a cool way to approach things, but I think the same thing can probably be like get accomplished by going on Instagram Live and just like trying to interact with people there. But also, I don't know, be authentic with it. You know, if you don't feel like you're somebody that wants to be in front of a microphone and interacting on that way, then I think that's fine too. You know, just figure out, like, still just lean into the stuff that you're about. And if you're just about making music, then figure out how to like make really high quality sounding live stream stuff right now, or like figure out how to put a song out once a week or something, or, you know, whatever's going to keep people engaged.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. That was a whole lot of advice for a whole lot of people.
That was a lot. Yeah. Also, like, yeah, I don't know if you really need my advice. You know, I'm over here working a day job and shit. So,
dude, you've got the life. You've got it mapped out.
I don't know about that. I'm, you know, doing what I can with what I got, and just trying to like you. I'm just trying to keep moving shit forward and figuring out how to strategize. The mind doesn't often go quiet on me, so
yeah, right. Well,
so much fun fucking catching up with you though, dude.
Man,
I'm
you're
sorry
one of
that
those...
it's been so long. We had this goal to do this monthly phone conversation that we probably have to like figure out how to reboot in some ways, but I'm stoked that we connected again.
Yeah, it's your audio just got really weird on those last two sentences. Hopefully that's not in the recording. We'll find out.
Well, it's definitely not in my recording
okay.
over here.
You send me yours, and I'll send you mine.
Whoa. Yeah.
Say we're doing everything online now. You're one of those people. You're one of those people I don't get lunch with often enough. You know.
Yeah. Likewise, dude. No, but you're also one of those people that like. I've connected with a lot of people doing this podcast, and it's been cool. But it's I think I've also gained like some pretty cool friendships out of it with people that like I would hang out with if I wasn't 2 states away. Like I've just I value your time and getting to hang with you, Andy. You're a cool dude.
Hey, 100%. I wish it. Likewise, I always have so much fun with you, and it's. I wish we got to do it more often. We have to bring back the monthly convo, and we have to make sure to be on each other's podcasts like annually. I think that's been a thing.
Yeah, or even fuck it. It can be more than annually. You know,
let's do it.
It can be whatever it needs to be. You know, maybe we'll just have another podcast. We'll have our own podcast called The Monthly.
There you go. There you go. I love it.
I'm gonna play my episode out with one of your more recent singles, which is "Still My Girl," which you have like this really cool lyric video for with the stick people. I feel like you're always pushing the creativity with those videos, man. I think that's really great. So
it took me way too long to make, but it's cute. Check it out.
Can I get you to say the tagline? It's a program.
I was just gonna say I need to say it on mine and yours for today, and I want to point out. I don't know if you remember this, that I fucked up the tagline last time.
That's likely.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know if I'd had too many
You had too many drinks in that bar before
beers.
You hit the stage.
Yeah, that was very likely. But I said
you were on the road last time.
I said that's a program, And
well, it's a program.
yeah, that is not a program, but it is. So I'm going to redeem myself today. It's a program.
Hell yeah! I appreciate getting to be a ghost. I appreciate to get to be a ghost on your program.
You're not a
Middle Class
ghost.
Rockstar.
We're doing visuals for the first time ever.
We're giving it a go. Yeah, dude, I appreciate the fuck out of the hang. I'll definitely put all the links in the episode notes so people can follow along with you. And I'm gonna play this episode 210 of Dan Cable Presents out with Still My Girl
And
from Andy
episode
Sydow.
30 something for me.
Hell yeah, dude. This is so much fun. And that's the Jelly Jams. And we'll catch you on the flip side, Portland, or wherever the hell you're listening from. Be safe out there.
All right. All right, folks. Thanks so much for listening. Sure appreciate it. That was Middle Class Rockstar, my conversation with Dan Cable. Be sure to check out his podcast, Dan Cable Presents. Also check out Bible Buds with Andrew Harrison, a previous guest on this podcast. If you like what you're hearing, it really helps me out a lot if you go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review. That's what helps it get out to more people. Or wherever you listen to your podcast is fine. If you have any suggestions of artists to have on or people in the industry or whoever, you can email me at middleclassrockstar@gmail.com. You can also reach out for any questions, comments, concerns, hate mail, death threats, etc. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope to hear from you, see you, hug you very soon. Take care. I was a young man out of college,